As 2023 draws to a close, it's time to look back on the year that was. I entered 2023 with low expectations for the gaming industry, with not many games to look forward to and the Switch era winding down. And yet, at least for me, it will go down as one of the best years in gaming ever. Let's waste no more time, here's my top 10 games for 2023. Here we go! Number 10. Super Mario RPG is more than just a remake of a SNES game, but a must-play experience for both fans of Mario and traditional JRPGs. With more engaging combat than most turn-based games, this offbeat adventure is full of witty dialogue, charming characters, and a unique visual flair you won't find anywhere else. When Bowser is ousted from his castle by an invading army of weapon-shaped monsters, Mario must team up with Peach, Bowser, and long-absent fan favorites Mallow and Geno to collect the 7 stars and bring peace to the Mushroom Kingdom once again. While the foundation laid by the SNES original was already rock solid, this remake enhances it with cinematic triple moves, making battles more exciting than ever before. There's also challenging boss rematches and a banging reorchestrated soundtrack, making it well worth revisiting for old fans. And yet, the sheer level of quality on display here makes it approachable and worthwhile for newcomers too. Sadly, not all of Super Mario RPG has aged gracefully, as the replicated control scheme is a bit awkward in 2023, with Mario's movement locked to 8 directions, making those few platforming sections clunky and frustrating. Mario, Peach, Geno, and Mallow are all frustratingly silent and unvoiced, showing too much adherence to tradition on Nintendo's part, and a bit more effort in this aspect would go a long way to injecting more life into these iconic characters. But these gripes are minor, and Super Mario RPG remains one of the most value-packed experiences out there 27 years later, and the Switch remake of it is the must-own definitive version of it. Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon has no right being as good as it is. Doing away with the camp and sexy stylings of the original trilogy, Origins swaps it out in favour of a twee children's storybook presentation. As the child Bayonetta, you'll get lost in a fairy forest looking for a way to save her imprisoned mother. Gameplay has you control not only Bayonetta but the titular Lost Demon, Cheshire. Each character is assigned to one control stick, so at the beginning you'll go a bit cross-eyed trying to figure out how to control 2 characters at once, but once you figure it out, combat is smooth, fun, and plays like nothing I've ever experienced. It takes a bit of getting used to, but it's worth powering through to go up against some crazy bosses, especially towards the end. And between combat, you'll be exploring the colourful, beautiful Metroidvania-like map. While it's fun doing this to get 100% completion, a confusing and indecipherable map truly makes you feel lost in the woods, and is a frustrating aspect of the game that sticks out like a sore thumb. The use of the map is a huge blemish on the game, and prevents it from being a true knockout. Still, there are more positives than negatives here. Great visuals, voice acting and music, and no performance issues make it a satisfying 30-hour adventure. Even if you've never played a Bayonetta game, it's easy enough to pick up, and if you have, it's still a great time despite playing nothing like the original trilogy. If you give it a go, you may end up becoming as obsessed with this game as I was. Master Detective Archive's Rain Code is an underrated and underplayed visual novel by the creators of the popular Danganronpa series. Dripping with style, especially its cyberpunk noir aesthetic, makes it surprisingly one of the best looking games of the year. As amnesiac detective Yuma, you're tasked with investigating a closed-off city to discover the shocking secret at its heart that could rock the world forever. Along the way, bodies start piling up and it's up to you to investigate the crime scenes for clues and testimonies, while solving each mystery in the trippy mystery labyrinth. It's a fun visual novel with engaging mysteries that have some of the most creative outcomes that I've ever seen in the genre. Unfortunately, the overly vulgar and sexualized assistant character you're stuck with adds an unnecessary juvenile presence that clashes with the rest of the game's tone, as does a final act which takes a sharp turn into the downright bizarre. Also, certain gameplay sections are really not that fun, so be sure to check my full review for more information. Negatives aside, these aren't really enough to drag the game down. Visuals, voice acting, and music are all top-notch. Overall, it's still a stunning debut game in what I imagine will be the first in a series. If you've never played a visual novel before, this would be a great place to start. Fire Emblem Engage is a solid Fire Emblem and strategy game with a few unique elements to separate it from its predecessors. Retaining the top-down, grid-based and turn-based strategy the series is known for, Engage adds the Emblem Rings, essentially summons of characters from previous series entries, who upend the Fire Emblem formula with powers never before seen in the series. While these battles are incredibly fun, and Fire Emblem gameplay has never been this smooth or user-friendly, the story and characters leave a lot to be desired. While Aelia with his toothpaste-coloured hair makes a good first impression as a main character and he has a mildly interesting arc, the overall story and characters cannot hold a candle to the far superior Fire Emblem Three Houses. With an over-reliance on cliché and tried-and-true Fire Emblem tropes, Engage's storyline is nothing special and characters are bland and forgettable archetypes. Still, visually the game is a treat with a divisive, colourful anime style, which I didn't like at first but came around to in the end. Similarly, the music is nice and brings back a lot of nostalgic motifs from previous entries. It's a good entry point to the Fire Emblem series for newcomers, but despite the nostalgia-baiting premise of the emblems, long-term Fire Emblem fans may be disappointed with too much familiarity. It's middle-of-the-range Fire Emblem, and I hope the next installment is better. Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp is more than just a remaster of the Game Boy originals. Every aspect of its presentation has been polished to a platinum standard by developer WayForward and remains the studio's best game to date. Taking control of a commander, you play out military battles on a grid using different unit types and the map's terrain to your advantage. This is a strategy game that plays entirely different to Fire Emblem. Units don't level up and there are no items or armor to equip, meaning you can knock out level after level. It's quite addictive in this sense and is the perfect game to play in short bursts. In many ways, each battle is like a puzzle and will tickle that puzzle-solving part of your brain in all the right ways. While character animations are full of life with top-tier voice acting to match, don't come into this game looking for a particularly deep storyline. The entire point of Advance Wars is to be fun and inconsequential. Despite using military imagery, there is no sense of being in a war zone as these are battles that play out on tabletops using toy-like units. I fully support this decision as trying to be a family-friendly Nintendo game using war as a setting would just not work today. What you're left with is a solid turn-based game wrapped up in a nicely presented package. While I had never played the originals on Game Boy Advance, I totally understand why these games have the cult following that they do. And my review of this game was my most watched review on this channel so far, so thanks for all your support on that one, guys. I really appreciate it. And now we're halfway. It's been a real pleasure delivering game reviews on YouTube this year, and I'm really happy with the small success my channel has found so far. If you're enjoying this top 10 list so far, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and hit subscribe. By the end of 2024, I really hope to get this channel to 1,000 subscribers, so every little bit helps me out. Anyway, that's enough rambling. Let's get back to the countdown. Here's number 5. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is a shockingly good return to form for 2D Mario, and the best 2D Mario has been since the 1990s. It recaptures that sense of joy you feel when playing Mario for the first time, and is one of the best games in the entire Mario canon. Taking place in the neighboring Flower Kingdom, Mario and friends must harness the power of Wonder Flowers to stop Bowser's new castle form from unleashing his world-ending Big Wonder. Wonder Flowers turn each stage into a trippy dream sequence, with each one being a new surprise you weren't expecting. You could be turned into a blob of goo 1 minute and riding on a dragon the next. New to the series are badges, which give Mario and friends one equipable skill per level. There's a high jump, fast run, parachute glider, and more. While these were more fun than I expected, not all of them are useful and a lot will just be forgotten about. The same goes for new power-ups, with the new elephant power-up being a hilarious yet useful melee skill, but bubble and drill not being all that useful or fun. Badges, power-ups, and Wonder Flowers don't completely reinvent the wheel like we were expecting, but supplement a game that is near perfect in other areas. Coupled with the promotion of Princess Daisy from spin-off character to main character, all of these elements combine to create a confident 2D Mario game that stands as one of the plumber's best. With the typically high-quality visuals, performance, and music we've come to expect from gaming's biggest icon, it's unsurprisingly a great platforming experience. Cocoon is the best indie game of the year and sits comfortably alongside this year's major releases for its sheer amount of creativity and ingenuity on display. Created by gaming auteur Jeppe Carlsen, creator of Limbo and Inside, it's another masterclass in game design. Playing as a cicada-like insect, your job is to carry orbs across a desolate world. But it really isn't that simple. Each orb has its own power when held, like materializing invisible bridges, operating elevators, shooting beams, and so on. And each orb is actually a self-contained world, and placing an orb on a special pedestal allows you to warp into it. Puzzles involve putting a world within a world, carrying the two worlds, separating the two worlds again, and so on. Eventually, you'll be warping in and out of 4 different worlds, and as trippy and confusing as it sounds, it's actually one of the most creative and ingenious game concepts I've ever encountered. Solving puzzles makes you feel like the smartest person in the world, backed up by an atmospheric soundtrack that swells when you've reached the solution. While there's not much story here, the game conveys so much visually, and the show-stopping ending will have you mulling over the game for a long time after completing it. Clocking in at about 5 hours, and for a much cheaper price than most games, I can confidently say Cocoon is the best indie of the year and deserves as much support as possible. Indies deserve much more representation in the gaming space, and sadly I haven't experienced that many of them this year. However, Cocoon is one of the best indies I've ever played, and I'm sure you'll love it too. Metroid Prime Remastered is betrayed by its own title. It does not play entirely like a remaster and feels almost like a remake given the sheer difference in quality between this version and the already perfect GameCube original. With better textures, lighting, performance and controls than the original, returning to Tallon 4 as Samus feels as fresh and as exciting as it did in 2002. Thrown into a desolate planet, it's up to you as Samus to piece together the planet's mysteries, explore diverse environments, and go up against thrilling bosses along the way. While certain gameplay elements have not aged as well, namely the lengthy search for Chozo artifacts near the end of the game, as well as some difficult combat sections against faster later game enemies, Metroid Prime remains a masterpiece that should be either re-experienced as a returning fan, or should be considered a mandatory gaming experience for anyone interested in the medium or its history. The game is a masterclass in atmospheric storytelling, as just like Samus, you truly feel like you are alone on a terrifying world full of monsters, and these environments remain some of the most unique ever. Backed up by flawless sound design and music, it's an absolute treat for both the eyes and the ears. If you haven't played Metroid Prime before, there has never been a more perfect time than now. Pikmin 4 is not only the best Pikmin game to date, but is surprisingly one of the best gaming experiences of the year. More approachable than any previous Pikmin game, it's a delight exploring PNF 404 as your little space explorer, relying on those titular cute creatures to get the job done. Collecting treasures and rounding up castaways has never been as intuitive or fun as it has in Pikmin 4. Aided by canine companion Ochi and a new lock-on feature, it's as joyful as it is stressful. One minute you'll be carrying a giant strawberry, the next you'll be attacked by a massive beast who'll eat half your Pikmin squad. Losing your Pikmin is one of the most emotionally devastating experiences any gamer can have, bonding you to these little guys and feeling each death personally. New to the series are Dandori challenges, where you have to multitask and come up with the most efficient strategies possible. While this has always been the crux of Pikmin, it's never been as fun to do as it is here. While other new modes like Dandori battles and night expeditions fare less well, they don't diminish the overall experience. And what an experience it is! More colourful, cheerful, fun, and less foreboding than its predecessors, Pikmin 4 recalibrates the series in the best way possible, and I can see myself replaying it again and again just for the vibe. Adorable visuals, beautiful music, and thrilling adventure combine to create one of the best games of the Switch, and it is a mandatory gaming experience whether you've played Pikmin before or not. And now we've reached the end. So, what has become my game of the year? I'm sure you've already figured it out by now, but here we go. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a masterpiece in every sense, and there could be no other choice for Game of the Year. Especially as in my review, I called it the best game ever made, something I still stand by. Playing this game, you can really sense that this is the culmination of everything Nintendo have learned in their 30+ years of game development. Every system in the game, from combat, exploration, interface, music, sound design, and visuals, have been refined to the highest possible levels, held together by an epic, moving storyline that will satisfy both newcomers and lifelong Zelda fans like me. The new vehicle building mechanic is unlike anything else seen in modern gaming, meaning you can pull a few vehicle parts out of your bag and attach them to whatever you can source from the environment. This adds a new element to the Zelda series: player creativity. It's not something I ever expected or wanted to see in Zelda, nor something I'm particularly good at or interested in, and yet it's so intuitive, so fun, so delightful. Nothing else in gaming this year has come close to the sensation of watching your homemade flying contraption come to life, nor the thrill of it coming apart in midair, forcing you to parachute back down to the beautiful landscape of Hyrule. And if the returning landscape from Breath of the Wild wasn't enough, there are now new cave systems, floating sky islands, and an entire underground world to explore, in between completing shrine challenges, giant temples, and uncovering every last little secret the world has to offer. There has never been this much value crammed into one game, and proves that the best games are epic, single-player experiences that launch in a finished state, not with any gimmicks like live service, post-launch DLC, loot boxes, paid unlockables, or whatever carcinogenic trash modern-day gaming is forcing on the consumer. The only negative I can come up with for Tears of the Kingdom is a somewhat inconsistent frame rate, especially using the Ultra Hand mechanic to build vehicles. Surely that will be resolved when the inevitable Switch successor launches. I cannot express my love for this game enough, and I could gush about it for hours. I already considered Breath of the Wild a perfect game, yet somehow Tears of the Kingdom improves on every element. The two games pull off the rarest feat of all, back-to-back masterpieces, with the sequel improving on what came before. If you haven't played Tears of the Kingdom, I don't know what you are waiting for. Not only the best game of the year, but for me, the best game ever made. So, Tears of the Kingdom now sits alongside Xenoblade Chronicles 3 as a personal Game of the Year winner. Which 2024 game will join them next time? And what does 2024 hold for the gaming world? Recently, I joined the Tokyo Game Life podcast to share my predictions for 2024, so give that a listen if you have the chance. It's linked in the description and will appear on screen. And all the games listed in this video got their own individual reviews on my channel. I've put together a playlist of all the games I've reviewed, also appearing on screen and linked below. Please give them a watch if you can, it'll really help the channel out. So, what was your 2023 Game of the Year? And what are you looking forward to in 2024? Let me know in the comments down below and I'll reply to you. Anyway, thank you very much as always for watching, have a happy and safe new year, and I will see you next time.